Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today is the 4th of March, and unplanned, I'm going to start getting my sweet potatoes going. A bit early, but some of the ones I saved from last year are starting to sprout a bit, and as such, I want to get them in some potting mix so that they can have a chance to get those vines to take off, so that in about a month and a half or so, we'll be in a position to take some cuttings from there for slips, stick them, let them root for a couple of weeks, and then get them out into the garden by early mid-May. So let me show you what I'm doing from a potting mix standpoint, and then I'll show you the little setup that I have. So we're standing here on the east side of the chicken run, and when I put this together to make it a little bit predator proof, I installed a 1/2-inch hardware cloth around the base going 2 feet up, and I buried underneath the outside some welded wire. I filled up the run with wood chip pretty deep, and over time it's been breaking down. Now the ground slopes west to east, so a lot of the wood chip that I put has continued to build up on this side, and over time it breaks down. And what happens organically is it sifts through the hardware cloth. So I have basically broken down wood chip and chicken manure and deciduous leaf fall, because we're below a really big willow oak here, and it falls in. And this is about 3 years worth of decomposition. So I'm going to use this as my potting mix because it's already pre-sifted for me, and I'm going to find a pail or some kind of a vessel to put it in and put a couple of sweet potatoes in there, and we will see them as they grow. So give me a few minutes and we'll show the final setup. And so this is the metal pail that I found. I think I bought this a few good years ago, popped a few drainage holes in the bottom to use as decoration for some plants that we had back on our porch when we lived in a neighborhood. And when we moved, this just wound up in the barn. And this is the material that I filled it up with from the outside of the chicken run, and these are a couple of my sweet potatoes. So what I'm gonna actually, and as you can see, they've got a pretty good shoot system going on. That one has a single, this one has 3, and they'll have more over time. I'm gonna get these things nestled about halfway, 2/3 of the way down in there, and then I'm gonna water it in, and I'll probably, because we don't have any freezing temperatures in the forecast over the next couple of weeks that I can see. It gets close a couple of nights, and if it really touches that freezing, if I think it's going to by the morning, I'll bring these in. But other than that, I'm probably just going to leave them outside. So yeah, let's get these things submerged a bit, watered in, and we can call Sweet Potato 2025 up and running. Yep, I think that's good enough for now. I'm gonna put this on the floor of the greenhouse where I have my fig cuttings, because it's gonna have a little bit more warmth in there than it's gonna have outside or in the shed. And yeah, we'll let these things roll for the next 4 weeks. I'll update then, and we will take some, we'll break these slips down into something more usable. So, until then. Hey folks, and welcome back to sweet potato slip propagation. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I started up with my traditional method of starting sweet potato slips by taking a sweet potato that had sprouted inside, and I took it, got some potting mix in a pan, nestled it in, watered it in. It's in the greenhouse. I'm just waiting for it to take off. I think I've got 3 of them in there right now like that. But today I wanted to try a bit of an experiment because my brain just said try this. I have probably another 50 to 60 pounds of sweet potatoes in the house, and it's not an ideal situation for storage. because it's probably, we keep the heat running about 66 to 68 degrees. It's dry because the heat runs, but they've stored well enough. I haven't had any rot out at this point, and they are starting to sprout. A number of them are. And over the last week, I was popping the sprouts and tossing them in the compost, but then I thought to myself, let's try rooting these things and see what happens. So I popped off 11 of these. These were the bigger ones that I saw. Some were longer, some were a little shorter and stouter. And coincidentally, I actually have 11 5-inch rounds for pots. So we're gonna go ahead and fill these up with some homemade compost. We're gonna stick these, we're gonna water them in, we're gonna put them in the greenhouse, and we're gonna include this in our update when we check the other sweet potatoes that we planted in a more traditional way for starting our slips. And we'll see what that update looks like, because if this actually works, this growing out, that's gonna be pretty awesome, because if you've got a sweet potato that pops with sprouts, instead of actually losing that sweet potato, which is completely edible at that point, you'll be able to just pop this off, still eat the potato, and still get your slips. So yeah, let's get these potted up, and in the next month or so, we'll see how that works out. All right, folks, so everything's potted up at this point. Now I just got to water it in and put it in the greenhouse and let them take off. Now, I've never seen anybody else grow sweet potato vines and slips this way. It's always been more the traditional method of take the potato after it sprouts, or even before it sprouts. You've seen them stick the toothpicks in the side and rest it in water, or bury it in potting mix, water it in and let it run. And I've never done the water with the toothpicks before, but how I have done the nestle it in and grow method. And that's why that's like I said, that's why I have in the greenhouse right now. But I've never done it this way, and I've never seen anybody do it this way. So I am super curious to know if it can work. And if it works, this is going to be a game-changing way for me to propagate going forward. The assumption is that you're going to have a sweet potato that pops vines at some point. If you don't have that, then you're going to have to go the traditional method. But if it does work, and you have those potatoes popping vines, this could be something interesting. So yeah, we'll put this one into the reel, and we'll see what happens in a month or so. See you then. So we got 11 stuck. I'll tell you about this one in a second. These are the original ones I stuck that we saw earlier in the video. To stick these, imagine just taking this guy, popping the shoot system off, and sticking that shoot system straight down. Now this one I did notice roots. We got roots. So I think that one's going to be fine. This one was a bit of a game time decision about a week and a half ago, I think it was. It was kind of a prelude to this idea, because I had a massive potato inside that had a really, you could see this guy growing out from underneath wasn't even there. And from the top, you can see this one and this one. It had these three on the potato itself, but it was a huge potato, and I said that's way too much food to just chuck in, especially when I had these in process, but I wanted to see if this would work. So I actually took the potato and I cut just this section off. It was a small piece of a big potato, and I wanted to see if that would give the potato enough energy in this condition to still push out a shoot system and root. I had no idea. I've never done that before. I've always kept them intact, but I want to know if that would work. And so far, I've got to say something's going really right here, because this system here, this wasn't even available inside. This wasn't even there. This one was nothing more than those two little guys. So I'm really pleased with how that's coming along. And if these go, that's going to be amazing. Because if that happens, I don't have to sacrifice any of my food to actually grow the next round. And it's a lot easier to stick these in a small space as opposed to finding and using a lot of potting mix in bigger vessels for potatoes. So like I said, I'm super hopeful that this actually runs well. And I've never seen it done this way before. So, hey, I'm kind of excited. And yeah, so in about 3 or 4 weeks, we'll do an update on this one, attach it in, and we'll take a look at the whole process. So we'll see you then. May 5th, 2025, and I am really excited to bring this to you as an update to this video because, as you can see, all of those sweet potato little nubs that I stuck in these 5-inch rounds have thrown off leaves. This fella here was the plant that I actually cut, the potato I cut a sliver off of and planted that because it had some roots, some leaves popping up, because I didn't want to lose the whole potato because it was probably a 2-pounder. And I have no idea what the root system looks like in him, but I've got a full set of leaves. I could get a load of cuttings for slips off him. And the two in the classic method, they're doing just fine as well. A lot of little sprouts popping up there. So yeah, if you wanted to, you could just pop this off, move it into another spot, and it would grow like this. Now I'm going to water these things in, and I think today's the 5th. On the 30th, maybe the 1st, we're going to go ahead and take whatever we have here and break them down into individual slips, and that will be the next update to the video. So stay tuned. This is a good time, folks. Welcome back to update time, folks. We are doing absolutely fine here. All of these little nubs that I stuck are throwing legitimate plants. So we're going to let them roll. We're still going to be doing, I think, our breakdown of all of this plant material into slips at the end of the month, so in a couple of weeks. And I got one other little project going on here too. So this little greenhouse, it's a 40-cell container. I had this inside with a failed seed starting experiment. But it was right by my sweet potatoes that were all starting to throw shoots. And so I snapped off the nubs, very similar to this, and I stuck them into here. And every single one of them, and it's been over a variety of time periods, like within a few days of each other. So we've got really, really small ones here that haven't set up yet. But these look like these not long ago. What I'm going to do with this tray here is I'm going to let these go ahead and leaf out entirely and root out, and I'm going to plant them directly into the garden as opposed to breaking them down for slips, because my big question to myself is, do I have a slip here that's going to produce a legitimate number of large sweet potatoes at the base of the plant? And what I mean by that is there, when I take cuttings from here for slips, here's a spoiler alert for you. When I break it down, I'll cut here, I'll cut here, and this leaf with this little heel will go into a cell pack. And when it does, it's going to root out. I'm going to transplant that, and I know from experience that's going to produce at the base of that sweet potato plant probably somewhere between 2 and 4 good-sized sweet potatoes. What I don't know is when I take one of those little nubs I was talking about that led to this plant, if I planted this straight out into the garden, as opposed to breaking it down for slips, is it going to produce 2 to 4 really good sized potatoes at the base of the plant, or 20 Sharpie sized sweet potatoes at the base of the plant, because there's an excessive amount of root nodes under there? I don't know, but I want to experiment with that, because this, frankly, would be the easiest way for me to propagate sweet potato slips going forward, because I can have 200 cells of potting mix in the house by my sweet potatoes in spring as they sprout. And I can just pop them off, put them in here, and when they root out, take them right to the garden, done and dusted. As opposed to rooting all of these out here and then breaking them down to reroot the slips for the future. So again, this is a lot of experimentation. I'm going to have 4 beds in the garden of sweet potato slips installed in the standard way I do it. And then I'm going to have 1 bed with this modified method. And I think this is going to be a really interesting year for me for sweet potatoes. No matter what happens, I'm going to have, 500-600 pounds, which is what I'm looking for. But this could really dictate the method that I use going forward in propagating my sweet potato slips. That's it for today. We're going to update, we'll update in another week or so and see where we're at. And then the following week, I think we're going to break everything down for slips for the garden. So, signing off for now. April 20th, and this is the sweet potato slip update. Why am I showing you my garlic patch? Because these 4 beds here are going to be the beds that the slips are going to go into once these plants come out, and I'm thinking probably a late May harvest. And here in the greenhouse, everything is still doing just fine. We've got 11 of the nubs that we put in these 5-inch rounds. They're doing fine. I think my favorite so far has been this little sliced potato. He's growing in a way that's going to be very easy for me to take these slips. The guys in the pot, they're looking at me a little trickier because they're growing very bushy. I'll still be able to figure that out. And the nubs in the greenhouse, the mini greenhouse, they're doing great too. I see one guy here who looks like he didn't make it. Maybe 2, but 38 for 40 in theirs with legitimate greening up. I think they're going to be perfect. Again, I don't know what's going to grow at the base of them, but that's going to be a part of the experiment. I just popped off another 24 nubs in the house, and I'm going to get them transplanted somewhere else just to kind of keep the whole process going. The garlic patch I just showed you, I walked it off. It's 300 square feet. So when I pull the garlic out, I'll rake the area over to see, I'll create probably new pathways in the process, rake it all out, and I don't know how many plants I'm going to put in there yet, but that's going to be part of the, that'll be the final showing of the video, I think. When I get these broken into slips, rooted out, and transplanted, we'll probably call it at that point. So, yeah, until next week. Welcome back, folks. April 27th, 7:30 in the morning, and it's getting to be a jungle in here. We are not going to be short of sweet potato slips this year. Something I wanted to show you. The nubs are doing great. I had another couple that I popped in place of the 3 that didn't make it. And if you see at the bottom of this tray, see if we can get underneath here. They are rooting through. And I've noticed as well, really good roots, really clean roots coming out from all of these. So yeah, I mean the jungle is alive, and I think it's going to be next week. I will go ahead and start breaking these down for slips. I just wanted to show the growth this week over week, these last few, primarily on the nubs that I stuck directly into these 5-inch rounds. I thought that was one of the more interesting aspects of this. These I kind of knew what was going to happen, the way they vined out. These less so. So I think this is coming along nicely. It'll be fun to break these things down next week and show you what that process is. So until then, signing off. And today is May 4th, folks, and we are going to today start breaking down our plant for slips. Now this particular one is the sliver plant, the sliver potato that I cut just this piece off of, planted, and it rooted nicely. We got a lot of slip potential here. Now, funny enough, yesterday I left the house between like 10:30 and 2. I left my greenhouse door rolled up to get airflow in there, and lo and behold, something decided to walk in there and start eating some of the leaves. So I don't necessarily think, I'll still break this vine down, and I may actually, for kicks and giggles, stick a couple of these pieces that don't have a leaf just to see if there's still enough energy in it to push out growth. Again, it's an opportunity for me to learn, but I'm not going to bank on those as far as my total count. Now my goal between the nubs that we stuck and these that we're going to stick is to in total get 240 viable pieces to plant, because that area that I walked off, the current garlic patch that's going to be sweet potatoes, I'm probably going to have 4 beds, the same 4 beds of the garlic. I'll probably keep those beds the same, and I'm going to stick 60 slips in each one. in each bed, 3 rows of 20, because the beds are about 30 inches wide if I measure it properly, 15 inches in the center to the center, 12 inches off to either side, and then a foot apart. So call it 60 in each bed for 240. So that's what I'm targeting right now. And what I'll do is I'll show you real simply how we take a slip from this material. You got your plant, you got a snip, and you can use whatever kind of cutting implement you want as long as it's fine enough to get through, fine enough and sharp enough to get through. And all I do is, even at this nub end here, I'm just going to take this and cut. And it fell on the floor. I picked it up and it left me with this. And I'll take this and I will stick it into the cell tray. Just like that. Now, one that I'll do that I think, now that one, do I have confidence it's going to make it? Kind of, but not necessarily really. And the reason why is because I like these more than the end pieces, where I can just take this leaf with a little heel, just like that. And I can put him in that way. And that's all I do for my cuttings for slips. I snip. It's got a heel piece. I dibble the hole, push it in, cover it in, and I let it ride. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to fill this tray out. This is a 72 cell tray, 6 wide, 12 long. I'm going to fill this out, and then I'm going to get a count of all my nubs, and then I'm going to see what other vessels I want to have these things cut up in. I'm going to do all of that, and then I'm going to show you the final result. I'm probably going to put these, I may leave them here in this little potting shed where it's not a whole lot of light, but I like the idea of keeping them out of the heat so they can just sort of acclimate to the damage they just took before I put them out in the sun. It gets some light through a western-facing window, so it's not completely dark in here. I've done this before with other plants. I may actually put it underneath my little grow light section with the shop light. I'll show you that. Yeah, I'll probably do that actually. That's not a bad idea because it's not going to have any active heat, but it'll have some unnatural light from those things. But it'll keep them from being in the dark. I think that's a good idea. So yeah, let me get these things stuck, and then we'll show you the final result. And then the next clip after I do that will be probably in about a week when I see how they're doing. Now, we're not going to get 100% success. In the past, I probably get about 75 to 85, and that's fine for me, so I'll overshoot a bit. But I've done this process now 3 years in a row, and I've had enough to put out each year, so I'm pretty happy with this. Plus, I like the end result of these plants that give me about 2 to 4 good-sized potatoes at the root of the plant. That's been consistent. I expect that performance this year too. And after all that breaking down, this guy's done. He served us well. With him, we got 149 in this section right here. 72, 29, 48. This was a good solid effort. You can see up front, I did stick all of the sticks that had their leaves bitten off if they had a really good heel that I could put in, because I'm curious to see if that'll actually take. It's got some green, no leaf, but green, and a piece of that area below in that heel that the rest of these do have. I'm curious to see if that'll leaf out. Funny enough, 149 here, and all the nubs that I've stuck over the last month or so, the ones that are really rooted out in those 5-inch rounds, the ones that are looking really good in the greenhouse, the mini greenhouse, and all of the additional ones that I've had just stuck around the place, I counted them all up. There's 91 of those. So 91, 149, we magically somehow hit that 240 number that I spit out earlier. Now, that doesn't mean I'm done sticking cuttings, because I'm going to go break down some of the 2 potatoes in the metal pan for extra, because if I get about 70% here, I'm going to want, a whole lot extra to cover my bases to make sure I have the 240. And honestly, if I don't get the 240 in total, that's not a big deal either. I just space them wider. There's going to be more than enough food coming out of these 4 beds that we're going to have these in to supply me deep in sweet potatoes for a long time. I'm just kind of a more is better than fewer when it comes to plants, because eventually you do run out of time to propagate more and get a harvest. So the more you have in reserve, the better you're going to be if you need to pull off of that in case you have failures in the garden. So signing off for now. We'll go ahead and catch this up in about 7 to 10 days when we get some roots to show. And today, folks, is May 16th, 2025, and we are going to go ahead and check these now because I'm really pleased with where we stand. So I did a count of everything. Now this is a 48 cell tray, but we only seeded, I say seeded, stuck 47 because I missed one, 72, and there were 29 over there. So I stuck 148, thought I stuck 149. And across them, I counted up, and it looks like we got 86% with still green there. So I'm really thrilled with that. It seems pretty high, actually. I was kind of expecting to be closer to the 75% range, but I'm happy with this so far. And one thing that I think is a really interesting note is this little section here. Because these were the nubs. I say the nubs. These were the sticks that got chewed off. And I actually pulled him out and saw a root. And all of these other ones, not all, but some, have new leaf growth coming out of it. So despite the fact that it had no leaf, it had the green shoot, and that was enough for it to still continue to photosynthesize a bit, I'm guessing, and push a little bit of root growth before the actual stick that had no leaf died back, but it left behind a leaf. That is a slip. In 2 weeks, when it comes time to plant these things out, that is going to grow absolutely fine. But let's go ahead and prove out a little bit of root and pull some of these guys out. Not too many, but a couple. Nothing yet on him. There's roots, folks. Oh, who else is looking okay and healthy? This guy looks like he's got a pretty good possibility. More roots. So as you can see, the method where all I did was take long strings of that vine and I broke it off at every leaf interval actually did yield results. We cut, we stuck, and we've got a ton of slips now to go. So this, combined with all the nubs that I've been sticking along the way, have definitely put me in a position to hit my 240. Plus I actually stuck another 2 trays of, gosh, probably another 100 just as backup after I finish this process that I showed you earlier in the video. So within a couple of months, we've got hundreds of slips ready to go out to the garden. Now this is not a complicated process, and I like the fact that I learned something this time around too with those nubs. I'm going to be super interested to see what kind of yields that produces under the ground, because these behind me, I know what they yield. I've done this method now 3 years in a row, and pretty much to a slip, I'll get 2 to 4 good sized sweet potatoes. And I say good size, a lot of it has to do with how long you leave them in the ground. In my experience, they just keep growing until they get hit by the cold. So as long as the temperatures are warm, you're going to wind up with something that could start as a nice little sweet potato and then wind up a rugby ball within a month, because it's just going to keep going and going and going. And that's not a bad thing, because that's just more food. It can be a little daunting to have a 5-pound sweet potato and figure out how to break it down and use it, but I've actually got one in the house left over from last year of that size that I have to cut up here in the next month or so. But sweet potato growing is so phenomenal. The leaves are edible, it's super pest resistant, they're delicious, they're nutritious, and as you can see, starting the slips isn't really that complicated. You just need a couple of sweet potatoes, a handful of tools, a little bit of potting mix, and you're ready to go. So I hope you learned something these past couple of months, because I know I sure did, and I've enjoyed the heck out of sharing it with you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe below, and stay tuned because we're going to have a whole lot more stuff like this coming up in the future. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.